Now, the thing with my friend Dev here is that he fails to read the room. He doesn't notice when something is emotionally charged and comes in and has a take which may or may not be correct, but it's going to get people angry. And this time, I actually enjoy seeing people getting angry because they're absolutely livid over the fact that the Washington Post, which is Jeff Bezos' paper, has decided not to endorse Kamala Harris. And this is blasphemy for people on the left. They view it as billionaires influencing politics. I love this. Like, they genuinely think that the other media outlets aren't owned by rich people or something. They must think that CNN is a rag. Maybe it's like a co-op, you know? The journalists own the publication themselves. It's absolutely ridiculous, the take they're having. Every single mainstream media in the United States is owned by rich people, by the very wealthy. And I don't think like the problem with them is that the rich are controlling the news. Which they definitely can be. I mean, there is nothing illegal if the CEO of CNN decides to have a certain editorial policy. Like if tomorrow he says, yeah, you're not going to report on the Hunter Biden laptop story and none of the journalists touch it. Like that's not illegal. That's not against the law. So I don't really know why they're so shocked by this. Because the universal consensus on the left was that my private company can do whatever it wants. So when you had people getting banned on Twitter, when you had the right-wingers getting suppressed on YouTube, all of them in unison were singing, my private company can do whatever it wants. Now that some leftists are getting banned on Twitter, now that some publications aren't playing ball, immediately they're like, oh my god, this is fascismus. Oh, fascismus is coming into America. Look, the press is being controlled. Okay, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about the concept of the press being controlled, because as you can see here, there's a couple of individuals like this gentleman Sticks saying that I forgot newspaper are written by emotionless robots with no thoughts of their own, right? So like this is their point. It's like, well, journalists obviously they want to express themselves, like the BLM kneeling for the national anthem, but the evil Jeff Bezos isn't allowing them to. If you genuinely believed that journalists should be able to express themselves and that you should have something called free speech and free media, then what you would find is that at the same publication, when asked on how they would vote, you would have some journalists saying that they're not interested in voting. You would have other journalists that would say they vote Democrat. You would have other journalists that say they would vote Republican. That would be normal. That would show that society is healthy. This is what actually happened in my country a couple of elections ago. Like, they went to a media station and they asked random journalists and they all gave different responses. Because if you get people that are genuinely good at their job, then obviously they're also going to have like different political leanings. It's impossible to take 100 people, put them in a room, and all of them to have the same opinions. The only time it's happening is if it's under duress. If it's the fact that they know if they were to have any other opinion, they would get fired. And this is probably what would actually happen. Like if some editor from the Washington Post would say that he supports Trump, or if some journalist would say this, they won't care how good their articles are. You know, they won't care if everything they post is always true and it's always passing the fact check test. They won't care if their articles are getting a lot of views and they're making a lot of money for the publication. No, they would ask the guy to be fired. It would immediately stop being my private company can do whatever it wants in a heartbeat. And they would demand the guy to be fired, and they wouldn't view this as fascismus. So this is why they come off as disingenuous, because at the end of the day, they're not interested in freedom of the press, they're not interested in free speech or freedom of opinion. They're interested in people obeying, and they're interested in journalists being political operatives for the left. If the journalists aren't politically operatives for the left, then they just dismiss the rag. They will say, oh, your information is coming from this source is bad, I don't believe it. In fact, they may even be upset that you're even considering to read those right-wing rags, and you're not reading the decent papers. So yeah, no, I do not believe for a single second that they're interested in free speech and that all of a sudden they're very concerned about the press or that they genuinely think that this is fascism. I think they know what's going on. I think they understand. The problem is that the mainstream media is losing a lot of credibility to the point that right-wingers don't even bother reading the news. And they have to at least start pretending that they're objective. Obviously, it's not what that poster said, that people are like robots, but it's pretty much more in line with what McDonald's is doing. Like, they have to pretend that their product is for everyone. Like, this is actual inclusivity, and the left hates it. Like, you need to make sure that regardless who reads your paper, whether it's a left-leaning person or a right-wing person, they feel represented. And as such, you can't take sides. I mean, sure, the journalists have their own political opinions, but they do not reflect the opinions of the company. And the opinions of the company is that they do not endorse any president. So, if the journalist wants to be in his free time, right, like outside of his job and support Kamala or support someone else, they can do that, and that is the freedom of expression and freedom of speech, but they can't use their own company as a megaphone. I don't even know, like, why is it so difficult for the left to understand this concept? Like, just because you work at a company, it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean that you can use that brand in order to amplify your political platform. It's the exact same stuff with the BLM and the football events. Like, just because you're employed by a football club doesn't mean that you should be able to use that football club to push whatever ideology you're having. Because that football club is supposed to be inclusive and serve people that disagree with your ideology. So for instance, in the case of BLM kneeling at the national anthem, that's basically saying that America is a problem. And there may be people in the audience that are patriotic and don't believe that. So like, what are you going to do? Are you going to debate them on the field? No, what you're doing is you're taking advantage of the situation that they're trapped in a chair and they can't leave because they paid for a ticket. And you're taking that opportunity in order to lecture them about your politics that they would disagree with, but now they're having to pay in order to listen to you, right? So this is not free speech. This is not free expression. Being hired by a company doesn't mean that you get to hijack their platform in order to push your shit. And the opposite should also be true. A company shouldn't push their shit on you just because you work there. Like, just because you work at McDonald's, it means you have to pretend you support the Democrats, or you have to pretend that you support these policies and these other ones. Unless, of course, the company is like an activist group or part of a political party, then it makes sense that everyone thinks that way. Because the question is, like, if you don't think that way, why did you join? Right? So, like, if you have an NGO that's supposed to protect the kittens, then it's expected that you like kittens. Why else would you join there, right? If it's a political party like the German AfD, then you're supposed to have the same ideology as that party, because why else would you join them? So there are some exceptions, but the rule is that if the company is serving food, it's providing entertainment, it's a journalistic outlet, then it shouldn't be vocal about what presidential candidate they're supporting. They should just be neutral. And obviously the journalists would have their own opinions, and if you're that curious, you can ask them in their private time. You can go into their private social media and ask them the question. And you should also find that the same journalists working at the same publication should have different opinions about an election. Some of them should be left-leaning, others should be right-wing, and others may even not care about politics. Why does the guy reporting on sports or the guy reporting on the weather should even have any politics? I mean, if they don't want to, I mean. Right? So this is what fascinated me with what Dev has did. It's not what he said, but it's the reaction, right? And I too would like all news outlets to remain impartial, but unfortunately we do not live in my world. We live in reality. And the reality is that, no, like, newspapers will be political. But what's interesting is that as long as they toe the line, people on the left don't view it as a problem. So, like, for instance, if Disney fires Gina Carano for her politics, they don't view that as a problem. If some journalist at the Washington Post would say he votes for Trump and he would get fired, they don't view that as a problem. But the moment, like, and it's not that they're endorsing Trump, right? Like, they're just saying, we don't want to endorse Kamala. They're freaking out and they're saying, oh, Jeff Bezos is owning the press and blah, blah, blah. I mean, what did you think is going to happen? It's literally, like, he paid for the publication. Like, of course he's got editorial final say in things. It's... You find that about it now? Like, let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.